Folks and board members, welcome to the June 4th, 2024 Commission on Architecture, Urban Design, and Historic Preservation's meeting. My name is John Darrow. I am the chairman. I'm going to call this meeting to order, and I'm going to ask for a roll call going from my left around the room, please. That'd be you. Hey, Jonathan. State your name and who you are.
Commissioner Jonathan Weisberg,
Thank you.
present.
Thank you.
Daniel Need, Commissioner.
Thank you.
Mary Ellen Morrow, Commissioner.
As Commissioner.
Soon to be a dad.
Yep.
We're rooting for you. Rooting for you.
David Whalen, Commissioner.
Glad you're here.
Robert Kavanaugh, City Council.
Glad you're here. That electric personality you have, Mr. Kavanaugh.
Juliette Burling, Planning Director, ex officio.
Dylan Pelton, Neighborhood Planner.
Wonderful. Sir, up top, we're good to go. Everything's, thank you. Okay, should you wish to join this meeting and you cannot attend, you may click the link below to join the webinar. Good God. https://us06web.zoom.us/J/881216888939 or telephone in New York at 1-929-205-6099 or in the United States outside of New York, 1-646-931-3860. And the web ID is 881-2168-8939. It's also available internationally upon request. Okay. Hey, thank you. My name is John Darrow. I'm your chairman of the board. First thing we are going to do is entertain a motion for the approval of the minutes as presented. Has anybody found anything inappropriate, incorrect in the minutes as presented? I would entertain a motion at this time. We have a motion to approve. Second from Dan. All in favor? Motion is approved unanimously. The minutes passed. Okay, we are going to start off our day at 183 Water Street, Binghamton, New York, for a certificate of appropriateness. Do we have a representative? Yes. Please state your name and contact information for the record, sir.
Yep, my name is John Clays, project architect from CJS Architects.
Okay.
Do you want to present the project that you're going to go through with?
Yeah, sure. I can't see the screen too well online here, but essentially what we're proposing to do is clad the new precast garage at the referenced address with a perforated metal panel facade with some integrated LED color changing lighting.
For reference, this is going to be on Water Street and Henry Street, the two sides.
Correct.
Will the colors be able to change for seasons, Christmas time, 4th of July, red, white, and blue? Yellow, are they a stationary color mount?
Are the colors, can you change the colors or are they stationary?
Nope, they can be changed, throughout the season or however the city would like.
Questions, comments? I like it. City have any concerns as presented?
No. I should mention that this isn't around any residential structures. That's really the only thing we have for lighting is that it doesn't go directly into residential structures. And this isn't, on those two corners, it wouldn't. So,
The enthusiasm is contagious.
I mean,
Please.
I find that this is aesthetic choices, but this is a city structure, so I think that just that there's very little contrast in color and very little depth to the design, and I don't know, maybe some overhangs or an awning or something. Yeah, I mean, it's literally being built, so it's way too late, but our other new ramp at least has those brick insets, which gives some color
Little
and contrast in texture and stuff, and this is lacking that. And I don't know that these metal grids are particularly helpful. And the lighting will be nice at night. So I was just wondering, design process wise, what we came to, and is there any chance for a little more contrast or a little bit more depth, perhaps?
Were you thinking of like lining the street facing aspects with awnings, like a black awning? or
Something like that, an overhang or an awning possibly, to give a little character to the whole thing. As well as maybe a little contrast in color and material with to the grates versus the actual structure. And I'll have to go and pull some examples of this, but there's some more different, and it very well could be a cost issue, but there's other kind of more figural screenings that I've seen in some other ramps and things that just have a little more character.
Do we have an option for further presentation?
this is the only thing that was presented.
We can go back with any.
Okay. So the enthusiasm, I'm going to frame a motion and see if that would work. A motion to approve lighting on the parking garage at 183 Water Street with the provision that we would request a review of options for the characteristics of the physical lighting to be brought back before the board. Joya, with that? Got a motion? Got a second? He beat you. Dan, second, all in favor? Okay, you can work out the semantics if you press the button, who didn't. All in favor? Okay, it passes. It's not a game show. It's fun, but it's not a game show. Are you chilly out there today? You got a jacket on? Oh, it's Binghamton. I gotta agree
So
with
did
you.
you get that, John?
And
Yeah, I caught most of it, I think.
Okay.
I mean, it's a longer term goal, but I know there's interest within the city and at the state level for possibly truly doing something restorative with the Boscos facade, in which case this would then be a very sharp contrast with a restored facade.
Yeah.
So not so bad of a contrast now, but
We tried with the previous ramp here on Holly Street to see if they could do us a green walled facade. You've seen the natural growing. And it came down to budget presentation. It was already signed off on by the time it had gotten to us, which we weren't very happy about. But we tried, and what we wound up with is something where bricks are still going at an angle, and it's an abomination of a parking garage. But it's the parking garage we got.
John,
sorry?
just a quick question.
Correct, that was.
Yeah, we have stamped brick, which again, we adamantly were in opposition of. I'm
Just
sorry.
a quick question. We still gonna put housing over there somewhere?
Yeah, I think
On
housing
top?
still goes on top of it, doesn't it? Didn't we approve 100? Oh, they got rid of the housing?
Thought we,
Yeah, how it's done.
I'm sorry.
Yeah, but it's,
The school board said no, because
correct.
the provision was that they didn't pay school taxes for so long. And they just basically dropped the project.
But it has been designed to keep that as an option.
Mhm.
If that ever.
So the structure is there if they wanted to go ahead.
Yeah, and it's strong enough to support,
Okay.
from what I understand, but no housing on top.
Do we need to acknowledge that there's no longer a proposed apartment structure going up because we accepted it when we did the initial approval?
There's been a modification to the design.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Um. Yeah, would that be in the form of a motion at this time to,
Do you have anything to add, Joe?
oh, I'm sorry. So with the.
Okay, all right.
Adjusted design. of the apartment block, we need to- our board should acknowledge that's no longer a project to approve it with the house. Would that be a motion to approve it, get something out of the office, come before us to. But this isn't what. Right, I mean, you have to approve. Okay. For the council, for council overall. Yeah, the design process, I'm asking, I don't know. Okay. That's why I get the big bucks to sit here, isn't it? Okay, so some information recently brought to my attention, which was conspicuously absent prior. I'm going to make a motion to approve the modified design for the parking ramp as presented, with the understanding that the housing project has been removed with the contention that they may reapply for housing in the future. That cover it? Okay. Do we have a second? Thank you. All in favor? Okay, the modification approval for the parking ramp is passed. We did the lighting. We want to see some things coming back. Is he good? Do we need anything? Okay, cool. Yeah, something just aesthetically pleasing. Okay, 108 Liberty Street, certificate of appropriateness. We're looking at a mural. Is the gentleman here? Jacob, come on down. Glad you're here. Have a seat. Please give us your name and contact information for the record. And who you are with regard to the project, of course.
It's Jacob Rotary. And I am the Programs and Facilities Coordinator at the Lee Barta Community Center.
Wonderful. Please state your case.
So, this is part of our ongoing project to increase community engagement. So we partnered with the Department of Public Art, who received a grant from the Broome County Arts Council to be able to paint this mural, which the United Way of Broome County is matching the grant. So we then, during our pantry hours, we put out a giant easel and asked the community members to draw on it or give us suggestions of what they wanted. The Binghamton Department of Public Art then reached out to local artists, and this is the sketch they came up with.
Now, I presume that's Officer Barta in the center, and he's going to go in the pediment above the door.
Right.
Okay.
And we also
The
talked,
helmet, the flag update.
yes, we're
Okay.
gonna get the appropriate amount of stripes on the flag. We've printed out a picture of Lee Barta to make sure the artist can get his depiction as accurately as possible. And
Good.
we've also reached out to his son just
Very
to
nice
get
man.
his approval.
I like it. Anybody have comments, concerns? We have to ask the maintenance question with regard to exterior murals. That's just part of our obligation. So going forward for 3 to 5 years, you're kind of involved a little bit with parks and whatnot. There's a maintenance program in place.
Not at this time.
Okay. That will be part of the the motion. Just because if you put it up there and a year, 18 months from now, it starts peeling off or something, it has to be restored back to what it is. Okay,
Okay,
that doesn't present a problem.
not at all.
Cool. Anybody want to take a leap of faith here? Anybody? Thank you.
Pardon me. Motion to approve as presented pending a maintenance agreement.
And the
Oh, and the modification moving the mural.
I will second that motion because I think it's a dandy little thing with the provision that the applicant does understand that maintenance provisions have to be in place to look out for it for longevity. What are we asking? 10 years is what we've been doing? I think it's been 10 on the murals. Think so. Yeah. 10 years. Okay,
Okay,
good. All in favor? Unanimous? Thank you, sir. Make it look pretty.
thank you.
Okay, glasses again. 9 Riverside Drive. Folks, I have to recuse myself because I sit on the board of directors for the Friends of the Kilmer Mansion. And I'm a little involved. Do you need me to make a presentation as I'm the only one here? Okay. Make a presentation? Good, then I'm just gonna sit here. Oh, we have to have a motion for an interim chairman of the board. Dan, I saw the vote of approval. So I make a motion, first to step down, to recuse myself on the, 9 Riverside Drive property and, to appoint Dan Need as interim commissioner of the city's Commission on Architecture and Design Historic Preservation. Do I have a second?
I'll second.
Thank you, Mary Ellen. All in favor? Don't let the power go to your head.
Yeah. All right, do we have someone here to present about it? Oh, yeah, I mean, I might be up, but we've had to go through the process before for something like that. Yeah. Steve, must be not here, so. And they probably said it would take this thing down. Okay. Right. I guess in this sort of unique case, given it's from the National Registry, I doubt we would have run into any issues with that. So as long as can we go through with approving it if we don't have anyone presenting? Did we come to that?
Yeah, the Kilmer Mansion received a sign from the National Registry to display. Basically, you have a choice when you get something National Register, they can send you a sign or you can say no. Kilmer Mansion afforded to take the sign and put it up on the front lawn. It's from the National Registry that basically gives a short description of the house.
I don't see anything strange about it, and so I guess I can make a motion to approve as presented the sign at the Kilmer Building, 9 Riverside Drive. All in favor? Looks like we're unanimous. John abstaining. Recused. And I will turn over my authority back to John. Now that the light is shining behind him.
Okay.
Think you have to step down and make a motion to reappoint me as chairman, I think.
Yeah, make a motion to step down and reappoint John as the chair.
I'll second.
Thank you.
All in favor? All right, unanimous.
Guys are wonderful. You did a phenomenal job. I just really want to I couldn't have done better
It's
myself.
it's the Society of Cincinnatus right here.
It's a cool sign. Okay, let's see where we're at. It's good to be back. Find my spectacles so I can see. Okey doke, we are at 7 Livingston Street. Applicant Michael Meager would like to demolish the structure at 7 Livingston to build a playground. Mr. M, are you here? Representative of
Dave,
Mr.
you
M?
guys want to come on up? Yeah.
Welcome, come on down. Glad you're here. Please state your names and affiliation with the project. Mahar. Thank you. Sir? Thank you. Thank you for being here, gentlemen.
Is the light on your mic, is it green or is it red?
Okay, we got it.
Did you hear that up top? Did you get the names and everything? Gonna have to have you say it again. I'm sorry. It's all recorded, so we have to be,
Michael Mahar, spelled Meagher. And I am the pastor of Saints John and Andrew Church, who owns the property at 7 Livingston Street.
I'm Dave West. I'm a trustee of the parish of Saints John and Andrew.
thank you, gentlemen. We got it that time, sir? Cool. Okay, so you're looking to get a determination of no historical significance to demo the building for a playground. Do you want to expand on that a little bit? We have the application.
We have the conscious of the aging of the building. Our offices are there. One time we had, before COVID, a chapel there, et cetera. And there, at one time, recently, there was one sister, Becca, had a Mary sister from Scranton living there. She's no longer there. But we're conscious of a number of problems that have come, and it's an aging building. Our diocese, which is Syracuse, sent down somebody from that office that looks at buildings and said, really, it's not usable because of the different things that would have to happen. And so we're going to move our offices back up to the parish house. Want to add, David, to a few things?
No, as you can see, the convent, the office convent is about 16 feet from the school, with the playground directly behind the convent office. We feel that we can't sell the property because of the being in a lot that would be subdivided, and that there's no use for no longer a use for the parish as it is now and with the condition that it's in. Some of the information that we've supplied with the application, there's a letter from the Diocese of Syracuse Risk and Insurance Office stating that the building is basically not safe.
Give me a minute to look at the letter. While he's doing that, I've physically been in the building and the issues that it has stem from a couple of things. And this was the original structure. They put brick around it. And I have no idea how they did it. There's no record of how it's connected to the masonry. There's no record of how they decided to design and build around it. Or did they take the clapboard off and put the brick, like I have no idea how structurally they redesigned this building. So that's one of the issues. Nineteen 37. It was built 1917, altered 1937. This in the basement, you can see all these dirt trails. That's water seeping in from the walls and going into the drain. So it has some fairly significant water issues in the basement. And if you can see these beams, all of these jack posts, there was never any structural support beneath these until they put them in. So most of the floors on the entire structure are pretty uneven.
Is there any moisture damage on the, like in the basement ceiling area? Like the,
Is there any what?
did you see any like moisture damage on the, like the basement ceiling area? Or-
Not the ceiling, but like these are the walls on the north side. From what I understand, they don't ever really stop. But the water just doesn't really stop on the north side of the building, does it?
I didn't hear the
Water
question.
doesn't stop the other north side of the.
The water leakage problem on the north side of the building never really dries out, does it?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Basically,
I know in the past, we've, for like a building demolition like this, we usually ask for at least a rough plan of the post use. Is that's typically a city requirement.
Yeah.
I mean, I know if the building is so far gone, we can sort of skip that, but
The other thing is, if you look at the larger spaces in here, I don't know. I don't know what structurally speaking is holding up some of the larger spaces in this building. You can see some of the stress fractures on the walls. Fairly significant, but the back porch needs to be completely removed because that's just dangerous. It really is. But without like destructive testing to figure out how the floor joist system ties into the mortar and the brick, I have no idea how safe this building is. I don't think anybody could without an engineer going in destructively testing the floors, the joist system. But
think I read somewhere that the floors are very uneven. There's a lot of settlement that's going on. So in order to remediate that, you'd have to jack up the entire building. Yeah, and that could be caused by a number of reasons, structure being one, but most likely foundation issue with the soils below the building. So it would require new foundations in the building as well as structural lifting, which not a lot of contractors do that. It's more of a specialized skill. And a lot of that is very expensive to do. And as I believe, that's probably outside of the church's budget.
correct. Cost prohibitive to try to do anything.
And is there any chance that this, if left in place, this structure would be used for housing nuns again in the
No.
future?
No, the number of religious sisters is way down,
Hmm.
and Sister K was the last one there. And no, it would not be. The school is about, we're pre-K through 6. And there are, everyone, the teachers throughout it.
yeah, I'd say based on Brian's opinion of the structure, I mean, normally we'd ask for a post plan and also maybe like an analysis of the kind of the cost leakage that the building is incurring, but it sounds almost like it's a foregone conclusion from your professional opinion?
Without seeing it, just understanding what's going on based on the pictures. Yeah, it would require significant foundation improvements as well as structural framing to reinforce those floors. And if it needs to be lifted up a lot, that could oftentimes snowball into multiple problems. Because the building is settled over 100 years. And as you lift it, you're probably not lifting it half an inch. It's going to be several inches, which is going to then cause the rest of the building to kind of deflect and mold around that, which could then lead to more structural issues, a lot more wall cracking and things like that.
When they have to know before they could do any lifting or anything, when they have to know how the brick is attached, wouldn't somebody have to check that? I mean, would that have to be? Because the brick might be,
Yeah, it's kind of a separate issue. Because it looks in the pictures, the brick looks to be in okay shape.
right,
So most of the settlement has probably happened on the interior of the building. And you wouldn't lift the entire building, you would just lift the portions that have settled. So it's kind of an isolated procedure. And the other thing is, given the proximity to the school, I don't see this ever being used for commercial use. Definitely don't want
With
college
that, but, yeah,
kids.
because of the school, yes. And if you will notice, the driveway went up, right after that is the playground on both sides. And so there's no real parking available except on the street.
Right. Yeah, and the last thing you'd want is a fraternity that close to the elementary
Yes,
school.
oh, definitely, yeah, yes.
Need it. Took the words right out of my mouth. To reiterate what Corporation Council said, and I was about to, is that we do need a plan for what's gonna go ahead. To say it's a playground is very nice, don't doubt you. We need to see what the playground's gonna be. We can't remove A without B being in place. We gotta know what's coming.
I don't know how the word playground got in there, because we didn't refer to it as a playground at all. We referred to it as green space, and that's all it was gonna be. We're not gonna put chutes and swings and that sort of thing and make it a park. No, it's just gonna be basically a lawn with grass to be maintained by the parish.
Okay,
I don't know how the word playground got in there because we didn't use.
well,
the
I
word
didn't put
playground.
it in there.
Would there be a fence to separate the playground and green space from the adjacent property?
What's that?
Would there be a fence around the lot to separate the green space from the adjacent property?
Well, there's also, an existing fence along the, north side of the property, halfway down the building. If you look on the site plan,
Yep, I see it in the pictures here.
Okay.
then the driveway's on the south side, which would stay there, so it's just gonna be a lawn. It's not, we've got $100,000 playground already. In the back.
So looking at this, what I'm seeing is a modern shell that was built around the pre-existing residential structure. I was looking at the depth of the windows on the side, and I think my opinion that they just sheathed the house as well as putting on an addition to the front, which gave us little enclosed bay windows and such. The biggest problem that I'm seeing is that the deterioration is absolutely due to negligence and lack of maintenance. If you want to pursue making a motion over there, go ahead. I'm not gonna. It'd be nice, even if it's green space. I think we just need to see green space, what's gonna happen. I'd table it.
Like to make a motion to table this case as presented until further information is presented on how the space will be used and how it will look post demolition.
I will second that motion. All in favor? Unanimous. So the playground's out, the green space is in. You just got to bring us the plan for what the green space is going to be for next month.
Thank you.
My pleasure. Thank you, Father. Is that you? We're rooting for you. You've been picking out names already. So 188 Court Street, welcome back, everybody. Glad you're here. While you're getting seated, I'm gonna take a brief stop and I'll be right back. Okay, we're back and ready. Sarah, always a pleasure. You know the routine, names and all that fun stuff, and welcome back.
Hi, everyone. Sarah Campbell with him and Howard Cattell. Also have with me Chris Lynch from Delta Engineering to my right. I also have Anthony Panicia from Delta and applicant representative Philip Akel and Ronald Akel. That's our team tonight. Or today, I should say. Not to any of the information from our prior hearings, but just making sure for the record that they are part of the record of this matter. There's two additional documents that we have provided you with today. The first is a letter from Bob Harkness dated May 30th. I'm just going to summarize that letter briefly. Bob indicates that he's been a realtor in the area for more than 35 years. I don't know why he wouldn't give me the actual number, but just 35 plus, that felt like sufficient for him. So I'm going with that. The property was originally listed in February of 2023 for $188,000. In March, on March 1st, Kent made an offer with no counter offer. There was one other offer on the house. And in July, so 4 months later, the listing agent contacted Bob Harkness again to see if the applicant was still interested in the property, which they were. There was a second offer presented, which was negotiated for several months. And in September, a lease was signed. So from February till September, over 6 months, the property was on the market.
And you said a lease was signed, lease or a contract?
Contract
Okay.
signed, sorry.
Okay.
Contract was signed.
I do listen to you.
Sorry. So from February to September, the property was on the market and available for purchase. This was a time, and I'm paraphrasing Bob's letter here, where this was an active real estate market, fairly low interest rates. And there was one other offer which fell through for lack of financing, apparently. Bob is of the opinion that this property, being on the market for so long was very unusual, given the real estate market, specifically in Binghamton at that time. He's also of the opinion that the building would not have sold for any of the permitted uses, given the costs associated with renovation, the limited parking, and the lack of ADA compliance. He also opines at the end of the letter that the demolition would benefit the neighboring commercial property, even to gain a few parking spaces. And we've also done an investigation to some additional investigation, as the board requested at our previous meeting, with respect to the condition of the structure and the renovations that would be necessary to bring it up to habitable standards. And I'm going to turn that over to Chris to explain.
So that's the next document that's got the photos labeling all the different materials. So our team went out, did an additional investigation behind the siding on all exterior elevations of the structure to see exactly where any previous wood siding may have existed. Our findings were we only found one face on the south side where the original wood siding was still behind the covered up fiberboard and aluminum siding. That is detailed on the last page, the middle picture, where you see wood clapboard siding found only at the south face. Additional investigation while we were out there led us to believe that while there's storm windows on the exterior, all of the wood windows, original wood windows on the interior that have been covered up by the storm windows were at some point painted with lead paint. And that to touch those, we'd need to do a lead paint abatement project for 46 windows, and for what we can count. Now, there might be one or two windows that were replaced newer that may not have lead paint on them, but the majority of the wood windows had evidence of lead paint, in our opinion. So with that, we provided an updated revised cost estimate with a summary on the front of items to deal with as far as lead abatement of windows. This is based on HUD rates that our environmental group at Delta deals with on a residential basis on a regular level. So you see that's a $27,600 figure for line item 1, just to get the windows ready and prepped to be removed. Then we go into removal of the wood windows, the storm windows, masonry repair of the front porch, shoring up the deck framing of both the back and side porches. Most of that is in pretty rough shape. So we kind of figure it's going to be at least 50% replacement, if not more. We've got to remove the aluminum siding, remove this fiberboard, go back with new wood siding over, and then the structure still needs an updated roof as well. So there's roofing in there. The new windows to meet, the aesthetic of the original character of the building. We talked to a Pella window rep. They gave us a package of windows to meet. Again, we've got 46 openings to deal with and 4 doors. So that's a pretty hefty price at $85,500 for the windows and $16,000 for new exterior doors. And then we need to paint all that wood siding, clean up some of the corbels and trim and things like that to kind of get it up to the standards that I believe this committee is looking for.
So that number, that total number is 316,000. Again, that's asbestos abatement, window replacement, front, back and side porch repair, new siding, new roof, new doors, paint. And that's only the exterior work. That figure has no allowance for any sort of interior work that has to be done. For example, kitchen or multiple kitchens if it was turned into some sort of apartment use, and bathroom or bathrooms if it was frankly to be renovated to any use. Based on all the previous information that we've provided, we believe that we've met all the criteria for demolition. This is not an outstanding example of its era. It is not one of the few remaining examples in architectural style. It's not associated with a person or event of historical significance to the city. Notwithstanding the guideline, which is simply that, and that the proposal is to create a parking lot for this area. The guideline states that, you shouldn't demolish for a parking lot because it would generally have a negative impact on the overall character of the street. This is an exception to that. This structure is an exception to the guidelines. It is in significant disrepair. There are no offers. There were no offers at a time when the property was extremely marketable. The cost of just exterior renovation exceed the purchase price by almost 3 times. The house is located between 2 parking lots, and the streetscape certainly will be improved with a vibrant, well-maintained area as opposed to a building that will just continue to fall in disrepair. I don't know if anyone has anything else. It's sort of similar, honestly, to the last project where you're seeing, jacks in the basement, things that inside that have fallen into disrepair. Obviously, a playground is a much more palatable use, obviously, than a parking lot. But again, if we're going to look at the criteria, I think that this structure has met its useful end, and we have met the criteria for demolition. We're happy to accept any questions or answer any questions that the board might have.
Did you have photos of the sample from the south side?
Yeah, the last page.
Hold it up just so I can take a peek.
Little picture.
Okay. So I was looking, I didn't find it. Give me a minute here. Oh, thank you. Got it. That's what I'm. Thank you. And that's when the fairing strips they used to mount the siding onto the clapboard. So you found no examples of the pre-existing siding on the other parts of the house?
Correct, only on the south side.
So they had stripped off all the exterior siding.
It may have been too deteriorated to have mounted directly to that,
So the walls are open
yes.
underneath
from
the
what- yeah,
vinyl
what we
side.
could
So
tell,
there's,
yeah, on the
there's
photos
gaps
on the, yep.
between the structural lumber to the interior walls.
Yeah, so. if
You have
look-
pictures of that?
You look at the first page,
Okay,
bottom right.
working on it. He's got a, I didn't get that one.
I think it's over to your right. I had left some up there for
I've got,
Oh.
I'm on a need to know basis.
you. I've got an extra copy of it.
Okay,
So first page,
I got my left-hand guy here.
bottom right. So working from where it says parged stone foundation,
Yeah,
and then working out, we've got the wood sill of the actual sill plate, original wood siding, and then the fiber backer board that's there. So in this case, there was still a corner here.
so I'm looking up from the cellar.
Yep.
We're not looking in from any of the facades.
This is from the outside in, so we were able to get up under where the sill plate of the foundation was.
Mhm. Um. Thank you.
So we have a photo that shows original wood siding, but we don't have any photos that don't show original wood siding. So only clapboard siding was found at the south. On the last page, there was wood siding, but it was not necessarily clapboard found at the northwest corner. So there is wood siding behind multiple locations, but it's not consistent as far as construction and when those that wood siding may have been installed previous to the aluminum siding.
You didn't check any of the pediments or anything to see what was up there, did you?
No,
Okay, didn't think so. Okey doke. Did you contact the Broome County Health Department with regard to getting assessment of the lead or asbestos in the house?
we did not contact Broome County Health Department. We consulted our environmental group internal to Delta.
Okay. And it's
Right.
been my experience with,
Oh, we have a term agreement with Broome County with our environmental group.
that the lead and asbestos generally come in when there are children present. They don't seem to mind so much when there's people. The lead won't seem to bother with the greater impact. I don't know.
Another thing I think we might have asked last time was just a post-use plan for like the green space to see what would be required for that. Because that kind of determines how many parking spots will ultimately fall within the footprint of this structure here.
So from the previous site plan, we were able to determine that the distance between the neighboring commercial building and 188 Court Street, that alleyway is too narrow to actually, if we were to leave the building in place, we would not be able to park any parking spots against the commercial building at 184. And so we're actually losing 7 + 3 spots from our initial concept plan if we were to leave the structure in place. Yes. Yeah. Yeah, so we also concluded that we could not, the driving lanes would be too narrow to create a viable one-way traffic through the
What was the width of the driveways you determined?
what did we measure? It was 8 feet. 8 or 9 feet. We have a photo of it, but we didn't include it in the package.
How many parking places are you gaining on the footprint of this house
The footprint alone is
alone?
7 spaces. 2 of those are ADA. Handicap. But leaving the structure there also eliminates 3 spaces, parallel parking spaces next to the commercial building. So it's a net total loss of 10 from the concept plan.
What is the gain to the back lot behind the existing house?
$17 spaces.
17. And your pre-existing spaces?
7 spaces. Yep, so the, the alleyway is only 8'3" wide. Correct. Yes. That is St. Mary's parcel.
Yes, at St. Mary's. So we're parking right where you're putting your foot in, and then where those cars are currently parked. Yep, so there'll be parking there and then a drive lane where the current cars you see in that image are parked up against 184 Court Street.
17, yes, parking lot across the street. How many spaces are required for the building?
Depends on the use.
Are you talking about 188 Court Street or 184 Court Street?
184. Thank you.
Do you recall how many spaces are required? No. There's how many left? 23,000 square feet.
I've got 18,674 square feet. Got 33 parking places at 193 Court Street across the way. You got 7 behind 184. Number of spaces according to the city is adequate for both properties. Both 184 and 188. I'm open for comments from anybody. My opinion, which is an opinion, because it is the last remaining residential structure on the north side of the block, it is unto itself historically significant. The Phelps Mansion across the street is the last remaining residential structure on the south side of the block, which again makes it historically significant. There's no other reflection of the development of that residential neighborhood left. They're the only two structures which show what each side of the street looked like. That is an opinion. Other opinions, comments, questions?
I think what ultimately my feeling is that puts the board in sort of a difficult position. I mean, a lot of the arguments you presented are actually pretty strong arguments. But ultimately, we have that post use of a parking lot. And that's where, the sort of line of, I guess, the line of argument falls. And it's a difficult position because if you're gaining around 7 parking spots to tear down a one of the last remaining historical structures that still has some elements, it's tough. I mean, that's kind of where I'm sitting. I don't mean to block the parking, but that's one of the things. And I think also I think I asked for what the green space requirements might be as well with the post use, because that might eat up more parking than even what you have presented on plan, which then would reduce it to even less parking that you're gaining from destroying the structure. So I guess that's kind of where I'm sitting.
I'm gonna pop back in for a minute, and you've seen, having been here for several months, you've seen a lot of the projects come before us that are getting torn down. The roofs have collapsed, the foundation has fallen in. This house is in darn nice shape. You want to let it sit there and rot for another 5 years and come back? I mean, I just don't see that as an option to do. It's a terrible thing. It's a beautiful, beautiful structure. It has integrity. It has aesthetics. You have not convinced me personally yet to knock it down. I don't see a viable reason to knock this building down at this time. That's me personally. I'm not speaking for anybody else. If you'd come in and the roof had fallen in and rats running around and black mold and the plumbing was severed and yeah, okay, that I get. But I would move into this house. I wouldn't have a problem living in there. I think it's stunning. Some other comments, questions?
I did a brief comparison between this and the Phelps Mansion. I don't know if you saw that, but some of the fixtures, the doorknobs are the same. the staircase, which is actually very important to the building, 'cause I don't know who built that, but it very well could have been one of the Lacy's.
Which was Perry's.
The fireplace mimics the same one that was in the Phelps Mansion. So is the crown molding up here. Pocket doors are similar. For comparison, when the Phelps Mansion was built, it was something like $4.7 million. The Lee residence obviously wasn't that expensive, but I'm sure for being on Mansion Row, it was pretty impressive. This is the molding on the ceiling is almost identical.
And again, we've offered to have Pass come in and remove those elements. I'm not sure what the interior really has to do with this consideration. I noticed that those pictures keep coming up, but this is really a consideration of the exterior of the building. And we've, again, agreed to have those preserved and removed so that they can be utilized in a different fashion.
Historical considerations are interior and exterior both.
However, if the building sits in disrepair, those things may not be preserved. And there's frankly no other option for this building based on the professional opinion of a long-term realtor in the area. So what's going to happen, nobody knows, right? But it is likely that even if the applicant were to put this property on the market, it would not sell and it will sit. And then those items would be lost. And Juliet, I wasn't sure if you had a document. I know you were going to look at that.
We did request Tito to review the parking lot regarding meeting the requirements and the amount of green space.
Yeah,
I don't have that with me. I've asked him to send a copy of that. I'm not sure if he put it in writing or if it was just a verbal discussion. But we will get that. From our recollection, the additional requirements for green space would remove at minimum 3 parking spaces from the plan. But I will get that document to you guys today, but.
okay.
I think I asked this last time, but I'm not sure. Right behind the building that you're in,
Mhm.
right along the back, is there parking there? Are there parking spaces? Because they don't show on here.
Behind the house that we're
No,
talking about,
not behind the house.
the commercial building?
So those are their existing spaces?
And how many are there?
7.
That's 7.
Yep, so the parking lot is being laid out to move those spaces away so that the drive lane will be close to the building and in the new layout. Does that make sense?
Right here. They're right along the back of the building.
This is a severe grade change to the basement.
Okay.
Spaces separate. Spaces.
They're right here. So 7 of them. So you're adding here, and here, and here. Well, we gave you permission.
What's the net gain? What's the net gain here? I'm gonna move that.
3, 4, 5, 6.
And here up to roads and the house ends up there.
This is.
Yeah, but this is marked 12 all the way up. Is this where the house is?
That's just a dimension.
Okay, this isn't 12 spots. This is 6, 7. That's 7. That's 7 spots. Right
In
here.
a relationship with the church on that.
Yeah, say. Say for that.
There. Oh.
What kids?
Doesn't even
Gotta get
have a
practicing.
dog.
We were just visiting.
Speaking of the record, Mr. Chairman,
Yes.
there's a chance this ends up in front of City Council on appeal. And I would hope that in the record, we have settled the question of actually how many parking spaces we're gaining here and what the final design reasonably will look like, and whether that design is meeting the city's green space setback, stormwater runoff and retention requirements or not. You know, and kind of have a more or less definitive answer if it passes muster with planning for those requirements. I think that would be very helpful.
Okay, my question, I had brought it up the last time. And you answered it. You just answered it. Because I couldn't tell by the picture because it's blurred there, so they were moved back. And so those 7 spots are now down,
Correct. Yep.
so you're gaining 6
Yes, along that.
along that line.
Correct.
And then not knowing exactly where the house ends here,
Mhm.
you're gaining at least 7 over here. So you're gaining 13 spots. But you told me where that line was. You weren't sure if that was the house.
Yes, and we're also relocating the handicap parking from behind the building to an area near the front.
Which would have been up where the house is.
Yeah.
Right. But you have your handicap parking in the back now? That's back there now? And they still have to come all the way around to go in? Okay. Yeah, I just needed to clear in my head where those spots were. Or if they were still there.
So sans the 3 spots for the green space requirement from planning, you said there would be.
Could you read it? I can't see it.
This is Tito's comments about the idea of parking. A landscape buffer is required along all property lines. The plan doesn't show a buffer along the southern or eastern boundaries of the lot. The buffer should have a mix of trees and shrubs. Those should be noted on the plan, or a separate landscape plan should be provided. An urban runoff reduction plan is required because the lot exceeds 20 spaces, and a bike rack for at least 2 bikes is required.
That's not a problem. The other thing is, so show me where those 2, so it's parking lot to parking lot. Yeah. So to the side that St. Mary's parking lot is on, we would probably seek variance relief for that. It really doesn't make a lot of sense to try to lose parking spaces when it's sort of regular asphalt the whole way there. That's at least an option. And then where else were they, he was saying? Yeah. So even if we had to add some additional green space, we would try to either seek relief or, do something like a fence as opposed to green space, which is commonly permitted by the planning commission. Especially where it isn't adjacent to a residential user or a non-commercial user. That's very common.
Please.
What would the plans be for snow storage as presented? Is there enough space in those green areas, or would it be piled on top of parking spaces?
Put it in the green space, right? You could either put it in the green space or truck it off. Right?
Certainly more snow storage than we have.
Yeah, which is none.
And we also have bike rack in place.
Been a while since I've looked at the requirements of the ERP, but I believe the snow storage is one of those requirements that they want you to address, so part of the reason why I ask.
Understood. One thing with the planning commission,
we do this all the time and we will meet the requirements. I'm just going on record that whatever those requirements are, whether it's landscape, snow removal, parking requirements, we will meet them all. We always do. And we can't get approval without those. So the question was asked by that gentleman over there, how do we ensure that that's just part of the process? And the other comment that was made, and I think I want a clarification on this, you said that the existing building meets the required parking. I was there and it didn't meet the building. That's why we moved to Endwell. And based on the square footage of that building, just taking 250 square foot parking stall, it's nowhere near that. So I just want clarification on that because I do not believe that building has enough for on-site parking for the address. It might have off-site parking because
If
when
it's
we were
closer
there,
than
we had 38
250
people.
feet, it's on site.
Okay, when we had 38 people, we still had to park at the Sons of Italy. We didn't have enough on-site parking for that square footage.
But per zoning regulations, you had enough spaces.
Because you had additional parking within the 250 feet.
Right, so you're including other parking places, not on
that-
site.
Correct, that can be used.
Right,
to-
but in practicality,
Right,
you
But-
have to have enter into negotiations with those other landlords to use their parking places. And many of them don't because they're short on parking. So for our space, we do not have enough parking places other than your 250-foot requirement, which you have to negotiate leasing space.
correct, and that's quite typical for people to do to meet their parking requirements. If it's within 250 feet, that is allowed by the city regs. So you have technically met the parking needs.
Okay, from a business owner, that doesn't work. We can't go park in the library. We can't go to St. Mary's because they have funerals. So I'm just saying, it's great that it's in the regulation. It's not practical.
Plus, when you do that 250-foot look,
It's actually 154.
or 100 and. Oh, I'm just saying, when you do that look, what kind of long-term commitment is there required for that? There's, as far as I have ever seen, there's no long-term lease requirement. There's no sort of, there's nothing. It's just, it could be a 1-month lease to get you through the planning commission approval. So that could end at any time. So what we're really trying to do is secure the property for utilization in and of itself. To the extent that you can. You're right. You can't do that everywhere in the city, but to the extent that you can.
What is the number of staff in the Guthrie Clinic?
I don't know.
They're gonna need parking. I'm quoting. If they take the parking, where are you gonna put the patients? Is it gonna be designated? I mean, they're gonna park across the street. Patients only there.
Yes, of course,
What's the
employees would be
patient-
the least convenient parking space.
What's the patient occupancy speculated at per day?
Well,
I don't
whatever
know
it
what type of
is,
environment it is in there.
whatever it is, it's not really working out well for them now. So whatever gain there is to achieve is a positive.
Mhm.
Or for future tenants. We have no idea whether Guthrie will stay in this location.
I think they probably would have factored that in coming in, if it would work for them or not. I don't know. I'm
Don't
speaking
know.
for somebody else, but I generally wouldn't have run the place if it wasn't gonna work for me. Sarah, I'm gonna throw out a possibility here that maybe we should table it and come up with what Councilman Kavanaugh had requested. Just if we vote right now, I don't know which way it'd go. I kind of got a feeling and trying to offer you some options. I'm giving you a choice, what you think you would like to do at this time.
Well, I mean, we know well, go ahead.
I was just gonna ask, is there any way that we could get like a preliminary guidance from the planning commission on their take on this proposed site plan? Because if we go ahead and approve demolition with 28 spaces and then it goes in front of planning and they only approve 20 spaces, then that kind of changes the way that we look at things. So
Slide over there, bypass the chairman, go. I can't answer that because I don't know the procedural.
We can't take the case to planning commission until it goes through Caud. If it's approved by Caud, it'll go to planning commission for full review. We can request to have it discussed in other business and do a type of review that way, but it would not be an official approval. But we could do that, I believe. We've had other issues discussed in other business, but it's not voted on or, and then it comes back to Caud.
So I think the hard part here is that my understanding is right, Sarah. Part of the number of spaces goes to getting relief from some of the requirements in terms of like the green space requirements and where they are around the edges and stuff. And that would happen through planning and or the ZBA if there's any sort of variance required for it, that the planning commission doesn't have the authority to approve. And Brian, if I'm understanding your concern right, it's that approving the plan with that sort of maximum number of parking spots here doesn't mean that that will ultimately get approved by the planning commission. And so as for purposes of considering what the gain is on total space, it's tough to gauge that here. So it's sort of a chicken and the egg problem where you know, I don't think it necessarily makes sense to kick it to planning for a approval that they can't really give because the site plan's not in front of them. You know, there's a couple options. One is to sort of approve it with the minimum number and review it under the minimum number and sort of view it through that lens and say, hey, this is the minimum number that you can definitely get. Or the maximum number that's allowable without any sort of adjustments and see, is this worth it or not under that setup? The other option, which we could talk about, the applicant would essentially be a conditional approval where we would say, hey, we'll conditionally approve the demolition with the understanding that these are how many spaces you're going to gain. And we need you to go to the planning commission and get those approved prior to our approval becoming effective for the demolition. So does that make sense, Sarah, where that would be one option to sort of work around it. And then it would be in the planning commission's hands in terms of deciding whether or not to grant the relief of the ZBA's hands to determine whether or not to grant the relief required for the parking spots. If they weren't to grant that relief, then we would probably end up back here, or we consider it a denial. And then they'd be looking at going to city council for the economic hardship piece. So those are sort of the two options as I see it for how we can proceed here to move this forward today. And I don't know if the applicant would have a preference one way or the other for that process. It's more meetings.
As much fun as this has all been for the past several months, I can only speak for myself, but I don't know how much further down into the weeds we can get on this one. I think, you know, everyone has done their due diligence at this point. Perhaps a conditional approval or denial based on the number of spaces would be the best way to proceed at this point. As a practical matter, my fear would be, you know, the theory that John, or the scenario rather that John proposed, that the building sits there for another 5 or 10 years into further disrepair and someone ends up back at this table seeking a demolition because of severe structural issues or whatever the case may be. Like, you know, no one knows what the future holds, but my suspicion would be, you know, that's where this is headed. Maybe there's a unique opportunity at this point to salvage what we can via past on the inside of the building. May not be an ideal solution, but a solution nonetheless. As far as the parking situation, I know what the guideline stipulates. We've gone back and forth on that. Always and never, I think are pretty dangerous language to use, especially in situations like this. So again, maybe not an ideal situation, but potentially the best course of action at this point. Just my 2 cents.
I appreciate those 2 cents, Commissioner, and stand in agreement with those.
Do you want to try and frame that into a motion? Yeah, oh, excuse me, 1 second. Oh. I have to stand up to see that.
I'm sorry, I can't see that. What is it?
I can't either, and I'm right here.
I can't see.
I'll read it.
Thanks.
So Juliet, quick question. If the planning commission's estimate, let's just say it's correct and they're gonna lose 3 more spots, what is, sorry, my math is a little impaired today. What is the net parking gain from demolition sans those 3 spots, if that estimate's correct?
22.
Well, no, from the demolishing of the house, we estimated we'd be receiving 7 additional spots, and so. Yeah, but it would depend on where the green space was going, so, yeah, but, yeah, to some extent. Right. And I don't know if it would apply at all, but, the planning commission and zoning board of appeals are allowed to waive number of parking spaces or percentage. So that's why we review it here first before we go to planning commission, because they might change the number based on the project. So this is it's a bit out of order, out of sequence, but we could ask them to review it.
I think our struggle is speaking to the uniqueness of this situation, I think. And I've been here a long time, pretty much longer than everyone but John, I think. And I've never, it's a interesting house on a commercial street. And it's just an odd situation. And if the tipping point for the board is how much space we gain, and you can't answer that question until it goes to the planning commission, then, Bob's comment about letting it go on a conditional is
I mean, I think
maybe the
that's
way to go.
probably the easiest way to address it, where, again, this board could condition its approval of the demolition upon planning approving the final plan, with the understanding that it can't be demolished until that final plan is either approved by planning or not. If planning were to come back and say, hey, we were approving for less than the number of spaces than what's been approved at the Caud level, then they would have to come back here
Right.
and basically pitch, hey, we got approval for this, can we extend the demolition or not? And then from there, Caud could either decide that it wants to modify its conditional approval. Like I said, it can deny it, and then, it's going up to city council for the economic hardship piece of it, which it might be where this is headed with the denial anyway. That's the relief that's available to the applicant for a denial here.
That's part of the reason why I asked about the planning commission, because my thought was that if it were to be approved for demolition, it'd be a shame if it got to planning and then all of a sudden we ended up with the same number of spaces that we would have had before this all started.
Right.
And the whole purpose of taking this building down is for more spaces, and if we don't gain those, then we could have left the building. So that was my thought with planning. So as long as, I guess if things were to move forward, it would have to happen in a way that nothing could be done until it made it through all of the stages.
Which is the case anyways.
Right.
Okay, and I have a little concern here with the fact that if we approve it for demolition, or we don't approve it, I'm sorry, misstated. If we don't approve it for demolition, that it sits there and rots.
So another buyer comes along, I think it's not worth it to hold it.
Right, That concerns me, because if we say,
It's already set on the market for almost a year.
but I wouldn't want to see you keep it and let it rot. I would be very disappointed in that. That would bother the daylights out of me. Because we're here to try to preserve the city, not let another piece rot. And I don't know which way to vote here, because I don't want to see it rot. And I really don't want to see it torn down. The stuff inside that building, you got a lot inside that building to
And this is
give
a,
away.
this is an applicant who has a long-term commitment to this community. They're not going to do anything that is going
I
to
do know.
negatively affect anything. To the extent that, if we're denied and we can't find a buyer, I have no doubt that the applicant would allow someone to come in and take things out to preserve them. I mean, that's just not the way they work. They're not going to do it just for spite.
And I'm familiar with them over the years, because I
Right.
used to work in economic development.
Right.
So I am familiar.
But they're also not going to spend, they're,
Right.
they're not gonna invest in a building that is upside down in terms of a potential return for investment. So it's not a charity either. So,
Right. And I think you're also going to spend a lot of money, because there's a lot of stuff in there that would have to be preserved.
right.
You look at those fireplaces, those doors, those stairs. I mean, there is a lot there,
Right.
and that all should be preserved somehow. No matter what we decide.
Yeah.
Good 2 cents.
No, we're up to 10 cents now.
So I think where we were at before we went off onto this side travel was reviewing the historic guidelines that we had pulled up. So just to kind of run through them. The guidelines are to not demolish historic structures that have historic or architectural significance within the city of Binghamton. To not demolish a building that contributes to the historic setting and character of a district. To not demolish a building that contains historic building materials or evidence of historic craftsmanship that would be difficult or impossible to replicate or reproduce. To not demolish a building that is a rare example of its type, style, period of construction, or historic associations. A building should not be demolished without definitive plans for the reuse of the property. The reuse of the property should never be a parking lot, which would generally have a negative impact on the overall character of the street. And do not demolish a building with reasonable efforts can be made to maintain its structural integrity. And last is a note that if a historic building is active and earning a reasonable economic return, it is not appropriate to demolish the building, even if the return is not deemed to be the highest and best use.
And then if you could just read the criteria as opposed to the guidelines.
Sure. Are you talking about the criteria from the ordinance? Or- Okay. For the hardship or which piece are you looking?
No, just the three, not an outstanding example of its era, not one of the few remaining examples of an architectural style, and not associated with a person or event of historical significance to the city.
So,
That's my shorthand.
yeah. So under the ordinance, the criteria for determination of historical significance for demolition. The commission's determination of historical significance shall be based on the following considerations, which are based on the United States Secretary of the Interior Standards for Historic Preservation. One, if the structure is an outstanding example of a structure or a memorial representative of its era, either past or present. Or if the structure is one of the few remaining examples of a past architectural style or combination of styles. Or three, if the structure is associated with a historical person or event of significance to the city, region, state, or nation.
Well, I'm kind of reiterating what I had said earlier with regard to the criteria this time. I do find it to be historically significant because it is the only remaining residential structure on the north side of that block. There are no others to compare it to. We're gonna take this one down. We still got one. You take this one down, we got nothing. It's gone. What was the second one? I'm sorry. The criteria. John, share.
If the structure is one of the few remaining examples of a past architectural style or combination of styles.
It's the only one left on that block, which makes it significant to the residential neighborhood that used to be here. I liked what he had to say. I don't think that I have seen an example of due diligence in trying to go forward with the building as a building, i.e. renting, leasing, some form of economic opportunity for the structure that might help preserve it rather than leaving it empty and derelict and prone to invasion by some hood rats or something. Sorry for the bluntness of that. Also, should have your building alarmed. I don't have a building I own. It's not alarmed. I would consider going forward with who am I kidding? Yeah, you haven't won me. I'm sorry, you haven't won me. I happen to believe if we had two or three there, we've still got something that makes it less significant. And it's the only one. That's how I'm looking at this. If it does come to pass that it's gonna go, Preservation Association should be the recipient of the very nice things in there. I'm willing to table it from my standpoint, if you'd like to try and come up with things that Councilman Kavanaugh had requested. I'm looking for any option here for you to kind of win your argument. There might be something out there. I'll call a vote if you want. I can't speak for the other people. I'm kind of asking you, how would you like to proceed at this time?
I don't think that we don't have any more aces in a pocket somewhere. If we did, we would have provided them. We would appreciate the option to proceed conditionally to the planning commission just to see how we do there.
Yep.
Um,
Well, I think that option is open to you anyway.
it really isn't
No.
unless you take action.
Okay. Anybody want to try and frame that motion?
Do you mind if I just,
Please.
okay. You can request planning commission review it unofficially without an approval, conditional approval. If that's the intent, is just to have them review it for function, design, number of spaces. If you don't have to have a conditional approval, if that helps in any way.
So the difference is that then we could go through the whole process with, for example, the planning commission and the ZBA and have you come back and still deny it, which really doesn't make any sense.
Well, that's
Right.
as possible as things happening in 5 years. You got a shot at it. Hey, it's billable hours to HH and K. Sorry, Mr. Hinkle.
I'd rather have the day off.
Yeah, yes, so
frankly.
would we, but that's okay.
I mean, it just puts us on a path that leads in a direction that we can anticipate, right? Instead of doing all these things, coming back and then having, you say no.
They might come back with an option that you have enough parking places maintaining the building. That might be a viable option. They might not. I don't speak for planning. I don't sit on the planning commission. I don't know what their agenda is going forward. I know that Binghamton is the single greatest city that was devastated by urban renewal. when it came around. There's no city equal to what happened in New York State. We're the number one example of let's tear things down. And our charter here is to try and not let that continue when there's viable options, which right now I still see a viable option with the building. I could call an informal head count to see.
I
If you-
guess the question is anyone else willing to make the motion to proceed with the conditional approval? Subject to, you know, the creation of 7 additional parking spaces.
I think at least the initial part of asking about that was the fact that it might turn the whole thing into a moot point.
Right.
Like if they're gonna say you can only have 3 spaces, then is it worth all of the demo costs to go and demolish this building for 3 spaces? So I think that's kind of where the hang up. Ultimately, you're also asking if it was the max spaces, say they said, all right, we don't need any green space. Would we be okay? My personal point at the, I mean, you present a lot of good arguments. I think it is a unique case. It's a tough case. Where I'm at is, yeah, I'm like right on the border but leaning towards, you know, maybe you have a case where if you seek an appeal, the council might agree to it. I mean, that's where I'm at. So I'd probably vote no.
Juliet, can they go to planning without going to a meeting and just ask for some information? What, you know, can the meetings be set up with planning?
So the,
Not planning, I mean the board.
No,
no,
no. You can't appear before the board just to have a chat. They have to have an application or something.
I just didn't know if there was a way we could get information to
No.
you that they would be considering. I just want to make sure that
We could ask them to discuss it unofficially in other business. So,
okay.
and that's about the
I was just-
extent of that.
Yeah, all right.
But honestly, there's no point in doing that if we wouldn't have approval for what we're proposing from you. If they approve that. Otherwise, we're just better off going directly to city council. I mean, I just don't want to waste any of your time and ours.
We have, through the umpteen years I've been here, allowed demolition for many of Akel's residential structures and adjoining properties, which were not a unique situation. And I do recognize this is an extraordinarily unique situation, or we would all be visiting again
Right.
and again and again. I will not make the motion to provisionally approve it. I might not oppose it, but I won't make it. I would make a motion for denial, but I won't do that without kind of a rough head count here. I'm in a bit of a quandary because I think I'm probably the resident preservationist on the board. And I look with eyes towards what is and what still can be rather than what's knock it down and then we'll deal with it in the future. I know where I stand. I'm sorry. Go ahead, young lady.
Rather, correct me if I'm wrong. I just wanted to clarify a little bit about a conditional approval. It would basically be giving the planning commission and the zoning board of appeals the decision-making process. If they say, they determine that, yes, it will have more parking spaces if we do this, that will make your decision to approve. And if it says no, it won't provide enough. So in essence, it takes away Caud's ability or Caud's review and decision.
so not exactly. So for Caud, it seems that the board has some concerns over what the value is in terms of the number of parking spaces gained. And at least some of the board have potentially raised the question of, hey, if you're only gaining 3 spots from this, that doesn't seem as valuable as if you're gaining something like 7. That's sort of a question for the board to weigh. With this going to planning on a conditional approval, what planning would be doing is basically looking at the site plan and saying, do we think that the proposed parking lot fits in and is acceptable with the number of spaces that are allowable? And do we think that we should grant any sort of relief to them for those additional parking spots? So ultimately, the number of parking spots, Caud can decide, hey, this is the number that we're saying we find reasonable to weigh against what the value of the building is. And it's reasonable to say that, hey, this parking lot is worthwhile as a trade-off. Yes, if planning said no, that's not enough, like, we're not gonna grant you the relief for the 7 parking spaces that are proposed, then it would come back to Caud. And at that point, presumably the board would be looking at a denial, but could modify its decision if it wanted to do something else. But yes, if either the ZBA or, again, I don't, without knowing whether or not they need a variance, that would determine whether they have to go to the ZBA. But if either of those boards were required and said, we're not granting you the relief you need to gain those 7 spots, it would ultimately come back to Caud for review again, or a decision as to what to do, because that conditional approval requires those conditions to be met. So it would require planning commission to sign off, it would require the ZBA to sign off if required. Yes. So again, like if Caud decides, hey, we're gonna condition it on 7 spots, and the planning commission says 6, they're gonna have to come back to Caud to say, we can't get 7 spots. So the plan we presented needs to change.
And just to add a few little other things. So we're also removing a curb cut onto Court Street between that narrow, in that narrow alleyway, which is a benefit. Also providing better lighting, better everything, better ADA access. So, I mean, to the extent that sort of the numeric issue is important, it is important, but it's not the only issue. But it's an overall improvement in safety and proximity.
I just want to make one other point on the parking. I know we talk whether it's 3 or 7, but if I'm the landlord, Guthrie, if I get 2 extra people an hour times 8 hours a day, that's 16 people times 5 days a week. That's 80 extra people times 50 weeks. It's 4,000 more people that go through that site. So even if they only do 1 person an hour, that's still 8 times 5 is 40 times 52 weeks is 2,000. So I don't want to condition it on what the value is of the 2 spaces, because the value to the owner might be significantly greater than what the value might be as the board is looking at it from a denomination standpoint, from a dollar standpoint.
Thank you, sir.
Baby alert. He's waiting. We're down to 2 days. Okay, every time you look at the phone, we're all wondering.
Yes,
Sorry.
yes.
Ah. That would be way more fun.
I think at this time, if
Yep.
you guys are good with it, which it sounds like you are, I would make a motion to conditionally approve the demolition of 188 Court, given the net benefits and gain of, do we want to call it 7 parking spots? Is that the number we're all comfortable with right now?
Yes.
That's what the applicant is requesting based off 7 parking
We'll
spots.
call it with the net gain of 7 parking spots.
So, and that's conditional upon planning commission approval and ZBA approval if necessary.
Correct.
I'll second that.
We have a motion and a second for the conditional approval for the demolition of 188 Court Street going forward to planning and ZBA. Potentially coming back here. All in favor? All opposed? Any abstentions? Absolutely, go ahead.
So the net gain of 7 spaces is still going to be 28 spaces total. Correct? Yes. I know we've touched on this 1,000 times, but there's 7 spaces currently. 21 potentially without the house being removed and 28 with the house being removed. So the conditional approval would be for a total of 28 spaces.
Is that correct?
Yes.
Can we just double check that?
Mhm.
You don't wanna-
We've lost our technician, so if I can just ask everyone to please speak right into your microphone, because he's the one that tells us if we can hear it or not.
Trying to look and see if I'm counting accurately. I'm just looking to see if I'm counting accurately and I'm asking somebody else just to look at it. Could you?
You say that in a articulate manner because I'm getting up with it. Yeah.
I think we're okay. I understand your question. In my mind, I'm just trying to understand how we tie the corner lot into this lot, but I mean, obviously that's a part of the conversation, so. In my mind, it's about tearing the house down and the gain on that lot. But I understand that it's a net for the whole campus.
So what if we sort of redid the motion to say that it's conditioned on the approval of the 7 spots gained on that lot with 28, and understanding that there's going to be a gain of or a total of 28 spots across the 3 parcels, right?
Yeah.
That those are the conditions that are subject to approval by the planning commission and the zoning board of appeals if applicable.
I think we're fine with that.
So
All right, we'll give it one more shot. Motion to conditionally approve the demolition of 188 Court Street, given a net gain of 7, a total of 28 parking spots across the 3 parcels pending planning board review, as well as zoning board of appeals if necessary.
approval, yes.
Approval, yes.
Question. 3 parcels. 188 Court Street. What's the second and third parcel?
184 and 20J.
184, which is the Guthrie Building site. Are there any actual parking places with that proper, or are they all just on 20J?
They're all on 20J.
Okay, so it's 2. And so 20J and 188 Court Street.
Ingress egress at that parcel, or would that be out of the equation?
No, that's not, I mean, that's
That's-
where it will be.
We're getting another clarification here. Hang on. Get lawyers involved. Things get complicated. You gotta be careful of your language.
So 3 parcels now, right? So it's this
Yeah.
1, 2, 3. So, okay.
Plus, we have an
As long as we're on the
offsite
same
parking
page.
lot.
So this little square here.
Actually, it's a 4.
No, I think it's this one, right?
This one.
This one. and this one.
Yeah.
Yeah. All the same
Yeah, we're
page.
good.
Yep. All right, cool.
Thank you.
There's actually 27 spots, right? That's all I'm coming up with. Unless something's mismarked.
I don't know. You do not let lawyers do math. Let me just tell you right now.
Can we call it as presented, or are we still?
Well, it was presented as 28. So that's what, we're saying 28, right?
We're good.
Okay, they're saying they're good with 28. And this gain of 7 on the 188 Court Street parcel, so that's what we're going with. Yes, so the 28 will be the total across the 3 parcels, the 20J parcel, the 184 Court Street parcel, and the 188 Court Street parcel.
Who thumbs up?
We have an amended motion.
I don't know if I have a third one in me. All right, hopefully for the final time.
Clean and
Motion-
concise, clean and concise.
Motion to conditionally approve the demolition of 188 Court Street. Given the plan as presented for a net gain of 7, a total of 28 parking spots pending review and approval by the planning board and the zoning board. If applicable.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. All in favor? Okay. All opposed? Motion carries. Wait a minute,
Thank you.
Sarah, we've earned this to be able to
Thank you.
strike a motion carries. Good luck, guys. Oh, yeah, right? Is this the first? God bless, man. Oh, first, oh, God, they're gonna be off the wall. Okay, do we have any old business?
As far as the Main Street Historic District is concerned, we are considering not making that a local district and just making as many of the local landmark properties as we can.
Okay, how far off of Main Street are we is it only indigenous Main Street properties or within the block bordering Main Street?
On Front Street, it goes a little off. There are certain areas it kind of comes a little.
Because I can think of a bunch of buildings right off the cuff that are like 2 or 3 in that really significant. No kidding.
It's only within the existing historic district.
Okay, now we'd expanded that a few years back and we were trying to push it out past the firehouse. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you so much. Any other questions before we? Oh, okay, stay, please. We'd love to have you here. I have to earn my $30 a month, you know? I don't think we get that much, do we? Yeah.
So this is the state and national registered district that we want to turn local. You can see how many landmark properties there are on it. There's a lot.
The highlights here are ones that are out of the.
Yeah, they're slightly out of the district. Yeah. Instead of making it a local district, all of these little blank spots, we'll see if they want to be local landmark properties. Huh? Yeah, this is the Able Benefactor here.
Okay, anything we have to do with regard to that going forward at this time?
I'm just informing. We're gonna see where that heads. We're gonna see what the mayor says, and, you know.
Okay, so hopefully he'll support it. It's important. Biggest problem I see going forward is the guy buys 100 Main Street and it's a landmark, and the guy next buys 102 Main Street and it isn't. And
Exactly, yeah.
that's where the problems come in right away. We should probably, thank you. And again, it's an opinion. We should probably, as a board, draft a letter of our opinion going forward.
Yeah, that might be helpful.
Yeah, I think that would be good. Guys, I want to take a quick survey. If you understand what's going on here, we have our Main Street Historic District. And there's some call to name just individual properties within it, not making it the complete district at this time. I proposed to Dylan that we draft a letter from the board for the mayor's consideration when he makes it's his final opinion or city council.
It's his for the most part.
I'm sorry.
I believe it's his.
Based on the recommendation here, it goes to city council.
And they get a recommendation.
Yeah.
Okay. So I think we should draft a motion or a proposal or a letter of our position with regard to the Main Street Historic District going forward. I know we've been here a long time. When is this coming up? Do you know what the time frame is?
We had the meeting with the public and we only had about 5 people, 10,
Okay.
5 to.
Oh, we got 5 more than usual.
Yeah, we had
Yeah.
5.
So there wasn't really enough to make the determination if the property owners were in agreement about going into a local.
Mhm.
um,
Because in
local
the
historic
district, there's
district,
100 properties.
76 of them are contributing to the national district.
Mhm.
The other ones are not. So it's kind of an unfair burden to those who are not contributing to it. So we can so this was one of our approaches to kind of address that, is to just approach the 30 remaining contributing structures and see if they would agree to a local landmark listing. We could also.
Thank you for your time, sir. Always a pleasure.
We could also do a survey. We mailed every property owner about the upcoming meeting and the response was pretty low.
Mm.
So we could also do a survey and say a yes or no. regarding listing, because
Okay, so why don't we wait for the survey to come back?
we haven't done that. So that's kind of what we're asking. So what,
Oh.
we could either do the, contacting all of the contributing structures and see if they would like to be a local landmark, because then they have the extra protection and it wouldn't affect the non-contributing structures. Or we could just survey everyone and get a yes or no. So
I'm partial to including, go ahead, please.
I think it'd be nice to shoot for still shoot for the creation of the district, which would be the survey route, right? No, and it's national and state, but for the creation of the local district, which would be the survey route first, right? And then you still have the fallback of just doing all the structures, right? I think we should still try and shoot for the local district if we can.
I agree. That's where I was headed. So would a motion suffice to, in a vote, to send this off to the next thing? Okay. All in favor of the Main Street District, raise your hand. Yes, okay, we got it. There you go. In the survey of the properties, yeah. Do we have any other new business or old business before us?
I don't think so, no.
Okay, then I'm gonna make a motion to adjourn the June. Thank you. Everybody in favor? Lost my gavel. I only pull the gavel out for these important things, you know? Thank you, everybody. Very much. Yes, congratulations, man.